Greetings, everyone, and welcome. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Lohr Vineyards and Wines Stella Maris wine tasting. I'm Cynthia Lohr, co-owner and chief brand officer of Lohr Vineyards and Wines, and it is my sincere pleasure today to welcome my colleague, Daryl Marcus, hospitality manager with Lohr Vineyards and Wines, and our team at Lohr, Katrina Kirk, and behind the scenes, Joshua Baldovino, our marketing manager, who will be monitoring chat. But before we get into the wine tasting, I want to introduce our esteemed 2021 Stella Maris wine event chairs, Frank Boston and Vanessa Boston. Frank and Vanessa, your role in the success of this effort is critical. We want to thank you so much for your leadership and offer you the opportunity to share some remarks with us. Thank you, Frank and Vanessa.
Thank you for such a warm introduction, Cynthia, and we're very delighted to be a partner with you in this event. I am Frank Boston III, and my wife, Vanessa Boston, my wife of 30 years. We're first time, it's our first time sharing this event, and despite the COVID challenge, the wine tasting committee did a fantastic job exceeding our goal of raising over $105,000 gross, netting $80,000 plus. Our original goal this year was $62,000, and we've exceeded that goal by over 125%. So for the 18th year of this event, we're very proud to say that we've had a great year thus far. I'm proud to be a part of this special event, which directly benefits Stella Maris care for patients, long-term care for residents and families. Thank you, Lohr Vineyards and Wines, for your strong partnership, as well as thank you to Cranbrook Liquors for the 18th year of dedication to this event. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, AT&T, and all of the sponsors who made this event possible. Please read the flyer in the wine bags to see this list of incredible companies and individuals who support Stella Maris. We appreciate each of you who also purchased a package, who bid online in the auction and purchased raffle tickets, or purchase other wines to support the Stella Maris event. Thank you, Tracy, the development director, for everything that she does. Simply does a great job for Stella Maris in every event. Special thank you goes to Kristen Marquis for being the true backbone of the event, for her guidance, her leadership, her dedication, her hard work, and everything that she has done to make this event the best. Very special thank you to Kristen. Anybody who's ever chaired an event or co-chaired an event, you know, we're the face of it, but we all know that there are special people who are behind the scenes that really do all of the work. Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Tracy. And let's get started with this fantastic event. And thank you all for supporting, sponsoring, buying wines, and making this a true success. Thank you much. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Daryl Marcus from Lohr Vineyards. Let's go.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. So, welcome everyone, and thank you for inviting us into your homes. It's unfortunate we weren't able to get together in person, but I love that the virtual world allows us and affords us the ability to do events like this. So thank you for inviting us into your homes this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Daryl Marcus. I'm the hospitality manager for Lohr Vineyards and Wines. I work out of our San Jose facility. You have a virtual background for me right now. It's because I'm in my office in San Jose. You don't really want to see the inside of that. It's not fun. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you please turn off your mics if they aren't already turned off. We'll be having a Q&A session at the end, and you can post your questions in the chat field or in the Q&A field through Zoom. We'll be taking about 6 minutes per wine. We have 6 wines this evening to get through. And as we go through them, we'll give you a little storytelling via visuals and an oral history as well. So at this time, the best way to get started is to just get started. The first wine we're tasting is, if you haven't poured it for yourself already and you're part of group number 2, is the J. Lohr Estates Bay Mist White Riesling. And Cynthia, this wine is a wonderful way to get started, wouldn't you say?
It's a terrific way to get started. And thank you, Daryl, and welcome again, everyone. So Bay Mist White Riesling, why do we call it Bay Mist? A little bit about our ethos is my father being a man of the land, truly growing up in South Dakota in a working farming family, really is a man of the soil and believes that you pluck the most specific characteristics of soil, of climate, of the environs to punctuate a wine. So as is truly the case in cool climate, Arroyo Seco in Monterey County in California, the Bay Mist actually comes through in the afternoon, shutting down photosynthesis on our grapes, therefore, this white Riesling, which essentially results in a very long hang time and really beautiful developed flavors. So as you put your nose into the glass, my goodness, so you might taste, or before you taste, you're gonna sense some of these beautiful white flower aromatics, some honeysuckle, and that's all characteristic of this white Riesling grape variety that just flourishes in, again, cool climate Monterey County, our chosen appellation of Arroyo Seco. This wine is 100% Riesling. It's been a stalwart in our portfolio for a very long time. It has kind of a bit of an iconic name to it and a bit of a cult following, because there aren't too many who craft a white Riesling nowadays. Daryl, you know, I love to pair this with Thai food and
Absolutely.
you know, what else would you pair our white Riesling with?
I mean, I think Thai food or something spicy is fantastic.
Mhm.
The slight sweetness that you find in this wine that we've left in there on purpose, right, to balance out its extreme, really bright acidity. I think that sweetness pairs wonderfully with anything spicy. So think of spicy Thai curry would be brilliant with this. I love this wine because of its kind of, it's not racy acidity, but it's really there, and it gets your saliva glands going, which lets you know that this is going to be good with food. And you can't have a good wine with food without acidity. You lose the wine entirely. So because this has such great acidity in it, it pairs wonderfully with food, and that sweetness tends to point me right into the direction of something spicy.
You are so spot on. And you know, as I taste through this, Daryl, this is one of those in our portfolio that I don't spend enough time with. And I'm going to revisit it now that we're tasting through it. To all the guests tonight, if you have this in your package number 2, you might also get aromas and tastes of lychee fruit, as well as I get some pear and just these really beautiful, delicate flavors that I absolutely adore, and I hope that all of you do as well. Now,
Riesling tends to be one of the more aromatic varietals, right? So we're talking about how big it smells in the glass and how easily it presents itself to you. It's very forward with its aromas, and it really fulfills your senses completely. There
Yes.
are other couple varietals that are as aromatic as Riesling, maybe, but Riesling is unique in its really forward presentation.
Yes, and Daryl, I think about our winemaker of white wines, Kristen Barnheisel, who has been with us now for, I think it's coming up on 7 vintages. I think it's 6 currently. And what I have found in her time with us is that Kristen continues to really elevate the aromatics. There she is, spot right there in the center. She elevates the aromatics so that you get these layers upon initial bouquet and aroma. And if you don't mind bringing that photo back up, I'll take
Sure.
this opportunity to introduce other critical members of our team. So Kristen Barnheisel had a long and rich history prior to joining J. Lohr of crafting wines for such reputable names as Inglenook and others. And she loves the nuance that white wines in particular are able to express. And so in every white wine under her hand, she always seems to find a way to just elevate the layers upon layers of aromatics. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about what family means to J. Lohr. Now, we are 47 years of family wine grape growing and winemaking. Started by my father, as I mentioned earlier. He came out from South Dakota as a graduate student pursuing his PhD in engineering, civil engineering at Stanford University, where he met my mom. And he and his building and development partner soon found that they had this mutual love of wine. So they started scouting territories along California's Central Coast, vineyard appellations, landed in Arroyo Seco with our first 280 acres. But to my father, Jerry, the J in J. Lohr, Jerry's left, to your right, is my older brother, Steve Lohr. Steve Lohr is our CEO and also actually is a civil engineer by education as well. And to his left, to your right, is our director of winemaking, Steve Peck, a truly gem of a gentleman, very humorous, learned scholar of winemaking. And to his left is our longstanding president and COO, Jeff Meyer, who's been with us for 37 vintages. Now, Jeff is very much an unsung hero in many ways in the J. Lohr extended family, because he's the one who keeps all the trains running on time in terms of production and keeping employees motivated during some of these times of extreme duress that we've seen in the last year. So Jeff is our former director of winemaking, now president and COO. And then as we start back on the left, to the far left there, with the cap and the black t-shirt, that's our current red winemaker, Brendan Wood. Now, Brendan actually has been with us for longer than Steve Peck, our director of winemaking. So the two of them are this incredibly dynamic duo in crafting our red wines out of Paso Robles. And then to his left is my younger brother, Lawrence Lohr, our COO of our vineyards. So when we talk about what family means to J. Lohr, it's really all about the extended family, our winemakers, our employees, our distributors, our phenomenal accounts like Cranbrook Liquors, our gatekeepers and consumers, everyone who's grown up with J. Lohr over the years, who has helped build our brand to the international renown that we are fortunate to hold today. We couldn't have done it without you. So that's truly what family means to us here at J. Lohr.
That's fantastic. No, and I feel like I'm part of the family. I mean,
Carol.
Steve's office is 2 doors down from mine. I can walk in there and talk to him whenever I need to. So his door is always open, and it just feels great to work for a family-run organization like this. It's fantastic. So that said, moving on to the second wine in the tasting, we have the Arroyo Vista Chardonnay. So for those in the first pack, this will be your first wine. And this one's very different from the Riesling. I mean, it is a different varietal, but I think the idea behind making the wine and the production of the wine is very different as well. The Riesling was in stainless steel, and it was very much an expression of the varietal. We wanted to let the variety speak through the wine. This one sees it is an expression of Chardonnay, certainly, but it also does have another layer because it is produced in the Burgundian style, right? So that layer is that it does see a substantial amount of French oak. And as you look at it, you can tell that it has some aging in oak. And when you smell it, you get these wonderful notes of almost like a dessert, almost like creme brulee or sweet apple. I get on the nose as well, or caramel even. It almost smells like candy apple sometimes to me. When you taste it and it hits the palate, it's very rich. It's viscous. It's mouth-filling, right? This is beautiful, beautiful with a nice creamy cheese. You do camembert with this. I would think would be fantastic with this. Or I've had chefs when we do dinners at the winery. I've had one chef do a lobster ravioli with this, which was fantastic.
Perfection, absolutely. So what I also love about this wine is, and you'll find this in our white wines and our red wines, but our white wines, particularly from our chosen appellation of Arroyo Seco in Monterey County, we've got this beautiful minerality to the wines that shows up in a very classic. Daryl is so spot on when he talked about Burgundian techniques that really have it see the proper amount of oak, malolactic fermentation. It's aged surely, which means on the skin, in 40% new oak for about 14 months. And it's also hand harvested early in the morning, whole cluster pressed and cold settled. And again, classic Burgundian craft for this style of Chardonnay. And, you know, when I have been out and about and tasted other French wines, whether it's a Chablis or a Chardonnay, this really speaks to that character. I love that minerality. And I've only recently, Daryl, fallen in love with that aspect of it because it does hold up the acidity. It doesn't compromise the fruit. And I'm a huge fan of any white cream sauce, whether it's fish or pasta or etc. And I just find that this pairs so beautifully with scallops, even in a beurre blanc sauce.
Absolutely.
So this wine I often overlook just because we have so many delicious wines in our portfolio. But when I
Right.
to this one always surprises me, and I find that I can't put it down. And if you're noticing, the package looks a little bit different in this wine than some of the others. This is our Lohr Vineyards series tier. Our Vineyard series tier basically represents wines that are often hand harvested from select parcels, very limited production. We craft them in what we call our winery within a winery, where it's much smaller barrels, more attuned process. The essence of place expertly crafted is the tagline for this particular tier, and it really represents, again, kind of our hand-picked, very curated approach to winemaking.
Absolutely. The way I describe this one often is it's a very classic Chardonnay that always feels new. And that's just how I describe it. It doesn't feel like it's classic. It feels like it's something new every time I taste it, but it also is something that I remember as well. So it's a super Chardonnay for that reason.
That's beautifully put, Daryl. I like that.
And this is coming from the Arroyo Seco, and I kind of want to position everybody in the California coast as to where we are a little bit. So we've got San Francisco up here. You have Los Angeles down at the bottom. We're going to forget about them really quick. And let me zoom us in to where we are. So the Monterey is roughly right here. Salinas is roughly over here. And if you've read any Steinbeck, you know, Of Mice and Men, East of Eden, there you are, you're in Salinas, and it's agrarian, and a lot of salad type produce is grown in the Salinas Valley. And you'll find J. Lohr for this Chardonnay in the southern part of the Salinas Valley. And that area is great because it warms up enough. If you're too close to the Monterey Bay, it gets way, way too cold. But it warms up enough to ripen without being too warm to over ripen our fruit.
Very, very well said. And that Templeton Gap wind that comes in the afternoon, as I mentioned earlier, shutting down photosynthesis, contributing to this longer hang time, results in really lush flavors for the Burgundian varieties of classic Burgundian is Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, but we also grow some other wines there in our portfolio, one of which we'll be enjoying shortly. But, you know, I find that Daryl, I think we discussed this yesterday in our company competitive tasting. I think once you have Chardonnay or you've tasted Chardonnay from Arroyo Seco and from the Central Coast, you fall in love with that flavor profile, and it makes it hard to really latch on to Chardonnay from, say, Sonoma Coast or Napa, dare I say.
Absolutely.
So I know for me personally, I have just become very, very much married to this particular flavor profile. It has become just Chardonnay in our portfolio is one of my go-to as one of my favorites.
Right. And I know, speaking to that competitive tasting, my number 2 in the competitive tasting behind our wine was also from the Arroyo Seco.
Exactly. Yep.
It
That's
just was.
that's why I mentioned it. Yep.
Speaking of that, in the next wine, so wine number 2 in your second pack also comes from the Arroyo Seco, and that's the Riverstone, the J. Lohr Estates Riverstone Chardonnay. And this is our flagship white wine. This is well distributed. You can find it in restaurants, in liquor stores across the country. I think the 2 terms, correct me if I'm wrong, Cynthia, that we like to use to describe this is balance and consistency. At least those are 2 key terms, right?
Yes. Because this is such a stalwart in our portfolio, Daryl, we've been able to, and because we own our own vineyards, they're estate vineyards, and we've been crafting Chardonnay and Cabernet for well over 30 years, that we know our vineyards well enough to know what are the techniques, when is best to harvest, how are we going to dial in the fruit and the sugar so that every vintage of particularly J. Lohr Riverstone Chardonnay is going to deliver that now what is has become known as very lush tropical fruit flavor. So if you stick your nose in there, I always get a little bit of pineapple, perhaps. I get a little kind of toasted coconut almost, but balanced.
Yes. Yeah.
Stone fruit. So a little bit of green apple and some pear, nectarines, certainly some apricot. And that lushness is really a hallmark of growing in this particular region. And what else makes this region special for growing Chardonnay? Well, we named this Chardonnay Riverstone Chardonnay because we actually have in the Arroyo Seco, which means dry river, deposited very large stones that are also known as greenfield potatoes. These greenfield potatoes, these river stones, actually capture heat during the day and radiate it out back at night. And what this also does is this forces the roots very deep into the soil, causing a little bit of almost like turbulence for the vines. But the result is in the bottle, right? This beautifully balanced, crisp acidity, fruit-driven, 9 clone-driven
Right.
Chardonnay. This tapestry of the acumen of our winemaking and viticultural teams to be able to pull together such a beautiful blend of 9 different clones to contribute to these layers of flavors.
Well, I think the clonal selection allows us to remain consistent, because the blend can change as needed per vintage, right? So that we can present something that's familiar when you go to the bottle again. You're not going to be shocked and wonder what happened to my Chardonnay. This is my Chardonnay, and what happened to it. No, that's not going to happen with Riverstone. Riverstone's always going to be something that's familiar and feel kind of homey when you have it.
Yeah, very well said, Daryl. You know, I oftentimes take for granted the fact that as family wine grape growers and winemakers, with consistency and leadership, and with our own estate, sustainably farmed vineyards, and the fact that we are vertically integrated, the fact that we have control over the quality of the wine from vineyard to bottle, that is why this wine in particular is one of America's most favorite Chardonnays, because
Absolutely.
we have that hand in it consistently. And my father, Jerry, is 84, and he's still involved day to day in operations. He's down in the vineyards. He's down lobbying in Paso Robles for water rights. He is actively involved, and it's his true passion. He won't ever pull back, and we're all very fortunate to be able to have time with him still to learn and to have him mentor us. He's a phenomenal individual, just very generous of time and resource, and particularly passionate about educating and inspiring young people in the field of viticulture and enology.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to work with him a little closer this last couple of months on a couple of projects. It's been a pleasure, and I've learned a lot.
Yes, that's right. And thank you, Daryl, for doing that. You know, it's really interesting how we've all just grabbed onto, you know, the virtual way of doing things. We recognize that, you know, for many of us, it's here to stay, even though we all look forward to going back out and enjoying restaurants and movie theaters and bars and whatnot. We recognize that many people, you know, kind of like this way of living. I certainly love to entertain, and my passion for entertaining from my perch here in San Francisco last year helped us create the At Home with J. Lohr opportunity. So when you have the chance later, navigate to our website. And At Home with J. Lohr was created to help folks like everyone on our Zoom today to be able to pick out entertaining tips and charcuterie and cheese pairings with wines from our portfolio, and DIY projects for those many J. Lohr corks that you're now going to have at your home because you're going to love our wine so much. And so we just have so much joy in sharing our wines with people and being creative and inspiring others to do the same. We couldn't be more proud of our At Home with J. Lohr initiative, which you'll start to see crop up in some retail stores in your various areas. And we invite you once again to take a look at that on our website, jlohr.com, and just have a lot of fun with what we're offering there.
It's a great website. There is a ton of information and wonderful ideas on there, from anywhere from recipes to everything that Cynthia was talking about. It's a lot of fun on there.
Yep. And if you love DIY projects, we've got just a ton of DIY and crafty projects. It's so much fun.
So our fourth wine is from the second pack. Wait, reverse that, first pack. And it is a red wine. And I'm glad this is part of the packs. It doesn't get a lot of exposure. I don't taste it in the tasting room anymore, and I miss it a little bit because we don't taste it in the tasting room anymore. But it's one of my favorites. It was unique to me when I joined J. Lohr. I had never had this before anywhere. And it's, I mean, just looking at the color, it's got this beautiful, almost, I don't know.
I call it garnet.
Garnet, yeah. That's a good term for it. It's got a beautiful color. You can see through it. It's not opaque, right? And then when you smell it, you just get pomegranate and blueberry on the nose, and it's slightly floral as well. And this is our J. Lohr Estates Wildflower Val de Guier. It's done in the style of a Beaujolais, right? Val de Guier is a relative of Gamay. It's not Gamay exactly, but it's related to Gamay. And we produce it with that production style in mind, the Beaujolais production style. So this one doesn't see any oak. This is stainless steel. It's all about the fruit expression, similar to the Riesling. It's about letting the fruit express itself through the bottle.
Yes, and this really has a bit of a cult following, I find, Daryl, because folks who have grown up with us over all these years and have known this in our portfolio, this is such a steal at, I think it's $10 approximately suggested retail price.
Yeah.
And so you could look at it as kind of a wine that's simple in production, but my goodness, does it ever deliver in terms of flavor profile and versatility too. And I love the romance in this wine. It is absolutely Beaujolais in style. I love to serve it slightly chilled. I'll have it with salads and quiche, and I'll bring it on a picnic. And it is so, so delicious and fantastic. And what's really fun about this wine too is that for many, many years, we thought that this was Gamay Noir. And I'm a boomerang. I started at our winery in the late 80s, and then I took a departure and did some stuff in tech, and then I came back 19 years ago. But back when I started out, we were calling this Gamay Noir until a UC Davis viticulturist came, checked it out, and asserted that it was the little-known variety of Val de Guier. So over time, anytime I find, Daryl, a Val de Guier out in the market, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to try that out. I've got to taste that, because, you know, it's like finding a long lost relative or something. You want to know it, and you want to know it intimately. What else is fun about this this wine? A little bit about the name is that you know, we call this wildflower because, again, the topsoil in our vineyards actually are home to some beautiful, delicate wildflowers. And again, the gorgeous aromatics in this wine really kind of express in this just light, lovely, colorful, delicate fruit expression. So wildflower to us seemed like a very appropriate name. And there are two different fermentation techniques that we use. One is that we typically do like a whole cluster carbonic maceration to really pull out the fruit and concentrate the fruit with the skins. And then the balance of the fruit goes through a more conventional technique of destemming, pumping over, and you know, kind of short, warm extractions and fermentation. And so that's what gives it this complexity, even though, as I said, it's kind of a simple wine, but it's oh so delicious. And I too am absolutely thrilled that it's not only in our portfolio, but made available to those of you this evening, and certainly that Cranbrook Liquors sells it.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a wonderful food wine. I find that it goes well with goat cheese. I think goat cheese is fantastic with this wine. I also like it during the holidays. It just reminds me of holiday cooking. So give me some turkey with this right away, right? Because it almost has a cranberry kind of aroma to it.
Yes, absolutely. And Daryl, you remember that for many years, we this wine was the base for our hot mulled wine.
Absolutely. Yeah, on many occasions I've had this on my stove for that exact purpose.
Yeah. Oh,
I can't stop smelling it.
I know. It's just delicious. Yeah, I'm excited because I've got a bottle here that I get to enjoy this weekend. So I'm super excited about having this wine in my home.
It doesn't have a lot of tannins, right? So
Right.
it's
Right,
not extremely forward in that way, and it's not really designed to be aged. You don't want to sit on this for a long time once you buy it. It's more designed to be enjoyed right now when it's fresh and when it's young.
Absolutely. That's right, Daryl. And that's, historically, the beauty of, the Beaujolais style is, it's meant to be consumed young, and it's released when it's young, etc. So, and that keeps the inherent freshness in this wine alive.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. Are we ready to move on to Paso? What do you think?
We are ready to move on to Paso. So if you have any Paso visuals, I'll tell a little story about Paso Robles.
Let's do it.
So people often ask Paso Robles or Paso Robles. Well, I'll say that Paso Robles there in San Luis Obispo County, the appellation, the locals, the common vernacular is Paso Robles, but truly, if you are one of the original who spoke of the Pass of the Oaks, as it is known, you would call it El Paso de Robles or Paso Robles. But we discovered, J. Lohr that is, discovered Paso Robles because after my father's initial 280 planted acres across 9 to 11 different varieties, he quickly learned that Cabernet and Chardonnay do not grow well side by side. So he, being very empirically and data driven, was on a quest to find where do the best red varieties come from in California. And so fortunately that led him to just an hour south approximately of Arroyo Seco, Paso Robles. And we started planting in about the mid to late 80s, and then later built our very large or larger production facility down there. But Paso Robles is home to 2,700 acres of sustainably farmed estate vineyards across mostly Bordeaux varieties in our portfolio. So think Cabernet clearly, and Merlot. We grow Cabernet Franc and Malbec and Petit Verdot, Petit Syrah, and we also grow some Rhone varieties. We grow in the white category, we grow Roussanne and Viognier, and we also grow Grenache Blanc, Grenache Noir. We grow Mourvedre. So the breadth and experience of our winemaking viticulture team allows them to both experiment across the spectrum from Rhone to Burgundy to Bordeaux, as well as to truly plot these distinct vineyard parcels, as you can see here in this map of Paso Robles. Paso Robles is also home to 11 distinct microclimates. These microclimates allow for nuance and expression of different varieties. given their climatic conditions, so region 2 or region 3 based on growing degree days. What all of this does is allow us to curate these wines with, again, special flavor and nuance and different profiles. And it's a really, really differentiating storyline to who we are as family wine grape growers and winemakers. And if you think of anything about J. Lohr, I want you to always think of J. Lohr as family, place, and craft being our 3 pillars of differentiators under which all of our unique characteristics fall. And with that, I'm taking up time away from our Hilltop Cabernet Sauvignon, but I did just want to paint a picture of Paso Robles. But Daryl, I know that Hilltop is one of your absolute favorites, so I'm going to let you speak about this wine.
Hilltop is super fun, and I think it's just been getting better and better every year. And I think so far we're at one of the best vintages that I've had yet of Hilltop, and that's to say something. I think the 18 vintage is absolutely brilliant. If you look at it, it's almost opaque. It's not. You can still see through it a little bit, but it's pretty much dark. And when you smell it, I mean, it's just aromas come at you, and they come at you, and then if you pause and then you go back, and you'll get different aromas after that. It runs the gamut for me from fruity to savory to earthy, all throughout this wine, and they're just layered one after the other. The fruit that I'm getting, kind of black cherry-ish on the nose, and then those savory aromas that I'm picking up, I get like cigar tobacco, right? So not smoked, like you're smoking the cigar, but when you walk into a cigar shop and you pick up a cigar and you just kind of smell it, that kind of tobacco aroma I get from here. I also get some leathery notes and some very meaty notes from this as well. Maybe some star anise, so that black licorice kind of aromatic as well.
I get a little bit of baking spice, or almost like a toasted pastry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of scent to it. And, my mouth waters, Daryl, when I'm anticipating tasting this wine, because it just has this beautiful mouth-filling expression of the fruit flavors. And then our cultivated style of tannin expression is one that Steve Peck, our director of winemaking, the very affable, learned gentleman that I mentioned earlier, is dense, soft, and never green. And how that translates in the wine, in all of our Cabernets and all of our red wines, is this suppleness, this silkiness, this you're never going to get that that drying astringency in our wines. You're never going to get either an overly dry one note expression, or you're not going to get a fruit bomb. You're going to get a beautifully balanced, layered wine that feels soft and plush, but still with these very fruit forward flavors.
Oh, absolutely. I think the way the winemaking team manages the tannins, both in the vineyards and in the winemaking process, is phenomenal. Like, the tannins are there. That they're there, but they're not overwhelming the palate so that you have to for your first impulse to say it needs to lay down 5 years. No, the way I look at our wines, especially Hilltop, is they are ageable. They're ready right now, but should you want to age them, should you elect to age them, you could age them. This one could go for 10 to 12 years if you were inclined. My question to myself is always, do I like it? Yes, if I like it, then I don't need to age it. If I right, if I see that if I think maybe it's a little harsh, but I like the flavors, then yeah, I'll give it some time. I'm never going to age a wine that I like, because there's a possibility that I won't like it after that.
I know, Daryl, you and I are of the same mindset as our colleague Davis Hyde earlier today said. He goes, I've got young kids at home. If I've got a wine in my cellar, I'm going to drink it. I know that's the case for you.
Yep.
That certainly has been the case for me. But yes, so I marvel at the fact that absolutely that this is drinkable now. But quite honestly, this can lay down for 5 to 10 years and beyond. And I see that we've got a question. Do you want to answer that one?
I didn't see it. Let me see it real quick.
Okay, I'll pull it up. It's about recommended temperature for drinking Chardonnay. So stepping back a bit for Chardonnay, gosh, let's see. I prefer, unless it's a Sauvignon Blanc, I prefer to have my Chardonnay just a little bit on the warmer spectrum. So 60 to 65, I think is fair. What do you find, Daryl?
I'll pull mine out of the cellar. So whatever the cellar temperature is 55, right?
Yes.
And I'll pull it out, and I kind of like to watch it come up to temperature. It's fun because you see it, the aromatics are a little tight at first, right? And then as it warms up, the aromatics release themselves a little bit, especially for Chardonnay. But yeah, the Sauvignon Blanc, if that's a different story. Let's drop the temperature on that one.
Right, exactly. So with our Hilltop Cabernet, so again, this is in the Vineyard Series tier. So again, think limited production. We essentially craft this in our winery within a winery, where we do a lot of our small lot efforts. And this particular vintage is 93% Cabernet Sauvignon, 5% Petit Verdot, and 2% Malbec. And one of the great advantages we have to growing all of our own grapes is the ability, again, to kind of dial in to allow for greater backbone as afforded by Petit Verdot, or to brighten it with just a little hint of that 2% of Malbec. And the Hilltop Cabernet is meant to be enjoyed with ribeye or steak or other beautiful red meat pairings. But for the vegetarians among us, my family loves just a really delicious, meaty, mushroom composition. So anything that you feel will stand up to this wine pairs beautifully.
Yeah, like lentil stew is what I'll have with this. It's really nice. The way I think about food pairing with this one is that, sure, if I want to soften out the tannins a little bit, I'm going to aim for something that's a little higher in protein and a little higher in fats. And
I love that approach.
So with cheeses, I'm thinking maybe some blue cheese with this one, or a Gouda that's been aged, like a really old one. Beamster XO comes to mind, and it's just brilliant with that because those are both really fatty cheeses, and this tannins love fats. And the more fats you can add to your palate when you're tasting a wine that has tannins in it, the softer that wine will, the less the effect the tannins will seem to have on your palate in general.
Yes. I'm a huge fan of blue cheese and gorgonzola. I love them over everything from meat to potatoes to you name it, pasta, salads, etc. So you've got me thinking about my Oscar night.
Yes.
So thank you for that inspiration. Now, what's also unique about Paso Robles, if you haven't had the opportunity to travel there, and we hope that you will come see us, because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but if you come to Paso Robles, you will have the opportunity to engage with Mr. Daryl Marcus, which we're truly blessed that he is making his mark down that way, defecting from the Silicon Valley, San Jose Bay area, where we have our first footprint of our original winery in San Jose. But Paso Robles is known for these massive temperature spreads over the course of a day, oftentimes 50 degrees. So you might see 100 degrees during the day and 50 degrees at night. And so what this does is, in combination with these very shallow and poor draining soils, often of a calcareous shale or loam nature, is that the berries really struggle to survive in these harsh conditions, which result in these small berries of very concentrated and bold fruit flavors. And this particular map is super impactful in terms of how this temperature range shifts from the various sub-appellations, the 11 sub-appellations that I mentioned, and their various microclimates. It's really, really fascinating. Again, the red areas are our vineyard parcels. Again, 2,700 acres in Paso Robles, 1,400 in Monterey County's Santa Lucia Highlands and Arroyo Seco appellations, and a small plot in St. Helena Napa Valley. But you see that this gives us just a wealth from which to draw when we're crafting these wines.
Absolutely, and I think that holds true for Hilltop in particular. The way I describe Hilltop is it's kind of the best of our premium Cabernet Sauvignon from a couple of different vineyards.
Yes.
The fruit is coming from Shotwell. Some of it is, right? A lot of it is coming from Shotwell. We do get some of it from our Beck vineyard, which is our premium Cabernet Sauvignon vineyard, which we produce our signature Cabernet Sauvignon, which is on the order sheet from this event as well. And then we do take a little bit from our Jean vineyard, which is as far west as anyone is planted in Paso Robles. And I say Paso Robles now because I don't live there, but as soon as I move there, I'm gonna have to say Paso Robles.
Right, exactly.
So it's this blend, or it's a survey of our best Cabernet Sauvignon vineyards in one bottle, and I think the dynamic nature of this wine is spoken to in part by the diurnal shifts that we see per day, and each of these growing areas has very different and distinct diurnal shifts. So you get a really well-rounded wine in part because of that.
Daryl, it's so fun. You know, we've only been growing Cabernet in the Jean Vineyard for, it's a more recent addition for us. And I always forget that we are now growing Cabernet in Jean Vineyard, because for the longest time we believed that the Rhone varieties would, flourish there. But now we're seeing that, hey, it's friendly to Cabernet as well. So feel really, really fortunate that we're able also to grow Cabernet out that way.
Yeah, Jean, I love Jean. I think it's a fantastic vineyard. If I could find it, I want to pull up a picture of it because I'm in love with Jean. Don't tell my wife, but I'm in love with Jean.
Yeah. It is really beautiful. And, when I know, isn't that just absolutely gorgeous?
It's amazing.
Those rolling hills, and it is so far out there. This is the westernmost vineyard in all of the Paso Robles appellation, and so we're near known other names like Justin and Tablas Creek, etc. And when we first found this parcel, we did some really intensive water testing, and at the time, and I believe this is still true today, only 51 acres of our parcel of 150 acres were plantable at that time. So we gave a lot of love and care to this vineyard, and as you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of the winemaker's playground for everything, because everything does so beautifully there. So now going into our very last wine here. So for those of you with the package one, the J. Lohr Pure Paso proprietary red wine. Now this is really a fun wine, and if you have the wine with you and you see that beautiful package, this wine was born out of the tremendously successful 2017 vintage, where we had just tremendous yield of Petit Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon, and not enough place to put it. So Jeff Meyer, our president and COO and former director of winemaking, said, we've talked for a long time about creating a proprietary blend. And these are two of our heritage varieties, Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Syrah. What if we were to, harken back to our roots and really create a blend that is the finest of what Paso Robles has to offer? And we had, ironically enough, claimed and trademarked Pure Paso because we were using it for a marketing campaign. And so as we were tossing around potential naming conventions for this blend, Jeff said, well, couldn't we call it Pure Paso? And we're like, oh my gosh, absolutely, yes. So J. Lohr Pure Paso proprietary red wine is now in its second vintage, the 18 vintage. And this really is kind of an homage to not only our longstanding roots in Paso Robles, but our love of Cabernet and Petit Syrah, and what one another does when blended together, create just this kind of marriage of both structure, but that black cherry characteristic Paso Robles fruit with some brightness, etc. So Daryl, you want to talk more about this wine?
Yeah, I love this wine. I think its color's a little darker even than the Hilltop. Yeah, absolutely. I think its aromas are almost a little fruitier because of the Petit Syrah, and maybe even a little darker fruit, like blackberry almost, right? You're pulling a little blackberry from the Petit Syrah.
Yes.
But the hallmark Cabernet Sauvignon aromas are there as well. So those leathery notes, the tobacco, the dark fruit, the anise, those all represent in this wine as well, but paired with this wonderful lush Petit Syrah aromatic.
Yes. I find that Petit Syrah for us is always this kind of backbone wine, particularly in this vintage. It's 60, if my eyes will not fail me, 69% Cabernet Sauvignon, 63%, pardon me, 27% Petit Syrah, 2% Syrah, and 2% Malbec. And so that backbone, that structure that you find in this wine, and oh my gosh, absolutely, it's the dark brambly fruit that Petit Syrah is known for, makes this also just really kind of savory, that almost kind of gamey, but still like super versatile. Anything with, rich tomato, or gosh, I would have this with a short rib, a braised short rib in a rich sauce. I would also even use some of this wine to create that sauce, because gosh, you've got all of those just really rich, almost kind of caramel notes to it. It's really, really delicious.
This one is to me slightly more rustic than the Hilltop, but I think Petit Syrah is lending that kind of rustic nature to it. And honestly, I like pizza with this one.
Oh, me too.
Like a margarita pizza is like, I think, fantastic with this.
Yes, absolutely. I love pizza and wine any day of the week.
Right, I know.
And to Denise, She is traveling, and so this is the one bottle I believe that she's had for tasting. You picked the right bottle, I guess I could say. But the good news is that all of these wines are available through Cranbrook Liquors. And I won't hedge in that direction quite yet, because before we open it up for some questions, I did want to just tell you a little bit about our sustainability efforts, because over our 47 years, we have really truly embraced what I call a sustainability ethos. And it largely stems from my father's love of the soil and his time growing up in South Dakota and taking care of the land and being a responsible steward of the land. And so far before anyone was introducing soil amendments back into the soil to fortify and to strengthen fertility, my father had cut his teeth doing that in South Dakota. So fast forward many, many years, in the mid 2000s, we were starting to see on wine lists designations for sustainable or organic or biodynamic wines. And our sales team challenged us to say, what are we going to do in this endeavor? I know that we are sustainably farming, but how are we going to demonstrate our commitment to our restaurant partners, our retail partners? And so my father actually was one of the primary stewards through the Wine Institute in the development of the sustainable wine growing practices through the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance. And he helped literally write the book on 254 prerequisites and best practices that wineries and vineyards must adhere to in order to be recognized as certified sustainable. So in 2010, we were one of the first in a pilot program of 17 total wineries to earn that designation of California Certified Sustainable. And fast forward again, we are now in our 10th year. All of our 3 wineries and our 4,000 plus acres are certified sustainable. And the Riverstone that many of you have enjoyed, and actually the Arroyo Vista wines, those are now certified sustainable. And by year's end, we will have 27 certified sustainable wines in our portfolio, which is a huge testimony to our commitment to proper stewardship. And sustainability for us is not just how you farm, it's not just your water conservation measures, it's not recycling, it's not just our 3-acre solar tracking array, which powers more than 85% of our Paso Robles facilities needs, or how it shows up in the bottle, which is to be certified sustainable as a wine, 85% or more of those grapes need to be considered certified sustainable. But it's really about our care for community and our care for social equity and all that we do to nurture our employees and to advance in diversity and inclusion, equity as well. So for us, it really is something that my brothers and my father and our employees all embrace. And we couldn't be more proud of the fact that last year in 2020, we were awarded our industry's highest accolade, the Green Medal Leader Award, in recognition of our sustainable leadership. So it's something that's truly important to us. We have a number of philanthropic initiatives across the US. Most importantly, probably, is our relationship with National Breast Cancer Foundation. In 2008, when we lost my mother due to complications from breast cancer, the next year I reached out to National Breast Cancer Foundation, an organization that's family run, just like J. Lohr, and said, how can we raise awareness for the importance of early detection and do good in the process? And we designated our then 2005 vintage of Carol's Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon from my mother's namesake vineyard in St. Helena, where I was married in 2001. And now $3 of every bottle of every vintage goes to help provide mammograms for women in impoverished areas, pockets of the US, patient navigation services, and a whole host of other support services for women and families who have been touched by breast cancer. That initiative is called Lohr Touching Lives. You can learn more about it on our website. But so we really, really care about communities. We care about efforts such as Stella Maris and what you are all doing to support local and to support and give meaning to community. So we thank you for that. It's definitely something that we're very, very much aligned with at Lohr. So I know I went a little bit over, but I guess I would love to open it up for questions if the group has any particular questions that they would love to ask of Daryl and myself.
I see a question from the Q&A board that says, you mentioned the term vertical integration. Can you explain what it is and what the advantages and disadvantages are? And can you explain warm extraction?
Absolutely, absolutely. So vertical integration is a fancy term for basically it means that we have the ability to offer control, since we are wine grape growers and winemakers at every stage. So vertical integration means that we're not farming out any aspect of the viticulture or enological process. So it all starts, as you know, in the vineyards. And so we are out there. We've had a long-standing vineyard manager, has been with us for, gosh, Steve Carter, I want to say 30 years, Daryl, if that's about right.
That sounds right to me. Well before my time.
Yeah. So it's that longevity, that curation of being able to be out in the vineyards to recalibrate as needed, to making the wines, all aspects, to bottling the wines. So critical to this is another differentiator that we are known for. If you flip the back side of your bottle, there's a very good chance that it will read at least produced and bottled by Lohr, or grown, produced, and bottled by. That is significant because that lets you know that a winery has devoted themselves to every stage of what is resultant in the bottle. And we take that responsibility to all of you very, very seriously. And again, it's, I think how it shows up for us is in the quality in the bottle. Warm extraction, I think I may have misspoke. I think I meant to say warm fermentation. So if you'll forgive me, I meant to say warm fermentation. I said warm extraction. So not that the two are interchangeable, but warm fermentation. I see a couple of questions. I'll just dive right in. Do you have a preference between corks versus screw caps, and why? So Megan, that is a terrific question. And in 2004, I wrote our first consumer and trade brochure to educate on the advantages of screw cap or alternative closures for different wine styles. My father has a love of the Australian term fit for purpose. Fit for purpose means that essentially there are different wines to be enjoyed under different wine styles and thus different closures. And so typically, for those of you who have the Valdiguier with you this evening, the Valdiguier, because it is meant to be consumed while it's relatively young, is finished with screw cap, because we want to encourage portability. We want to encourage ease of consumption. But truly, that many years ago, screw cap started to find a home to counter trichloroanisole, the component that was found at the time in about 3 to 5% of cork finishes that contributed to that kind of musky odor. And so many in the mid 2000s were choosing to finish their wines with screw cap to mitigate that effect. I think our ability to produce cork capsules and other like closures has only improved in recent years. And so we're seeing a return to now finishing in cork for many wines for that oxygen ingress that contributes to bouquet development. So again, fit for purpose. So you'll find many white wines, Sauvignon Blanc, etc., particularly of the Australian flavor, finished under screw cap. We don't have a preference of one over the other. We just choose based on wine style and consumption.
Right. Our Sauvignon Blanc is also in a screw cap. Our Flume Crossing, I'm sorry, not the F&G Vineyard, but our Flume Crossing Sauvignon Blanc is in a screw cap. And I think that speaks to that as well. You want it fresh, you want it young. And so there's no need for a cork in that instance.
Exactly, exactly. Another great question that I see here, and I don't know that I can be faithful to the truest answer here, so I'm going to get back to you, Megan, if you want to send me an email or include your email in chat, or you can reach out to Daryl or to I. My email is clohr@jlohr.com, and Daryl's is dmarcus, DMARCUS @jlohr.com. I wanted to tell you that the Riesling bottle, shaped as it is, you know, I probably want to say blame those Germans, of which I am one. I think the Riesling bottle has that classic look to it because much like a wine with a higher residual sugar, it has just this almost kind of more delicate appearance. It's not a heavy bottle. It's a slender bottle that I have always found kind of the wines that have residual sugar or sweeter profile to be encased in. Daryl, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Riesling bottle shape.
I think bottle shapes for us in particular is more tradition. So we look to what the tradition has, like what wine has been in traditionally, and we look to that as a guide for what bottle shape to use. I don't think there's a functional reason for the Riesling to be the shape that it is.
That's my understanding as well. I think it's all about aesthetics in that particular
Right.
wine, quite frankly. But it's great to differentiate that wine because it is different from its others. And another great question, Megan. Yes, we really invest in people first and foremost, and gender comes second. We always look for the most qualified individual to join our extended family, and I feel really blessed that that is something that comes very naturally to my father. And so yes, our winemaker of white wines, Kristen Barnheisel, is pretty amazing. We also have, I think, 4 other female VPs that I have the pleasure to work with, everyone from a VP of National Accounts to VP of Marketing to VP of international sales. So we don't shy away from, we look for the best candidate, and that's how my father has always operated, and it's our ethos as well. Though certainly I recognize that as I'm a rarity as a female co-owner in our industry, and so I spend a considerable amount of my time advocating for more opportunities for women in our industry through I work with Dream Big Darling. I work with Women of the Vine and Spirits, who are dedicated to providing particularly younger women with opportunities for networking, for mentoring, for learning. So it's very much a part of who we are. That's a terrific question.
And I just want one more shout out to Kristen Barnheisel. I think she's a rock star. I think she's a rock star. Our white wine program was good. I was great before she came, but I think she took it to another level entirely.
Yes.
And I think she converted me. I'm become more of a white wine fan than red, and I'm reaching more toward white now because of Kristen, honestly. So she's a rock star.
Very, very well said, Daryl. And I couldn't agree more. I have always naturally gravitated toward our reds, but I'm just extremely fond of Kristen as a human being, in addition to her deft hand at winemaking, but also, she's truly committed to advancing women in our industry as well. She is the former president of our industry's largest educational body, the ASEV, the American Society of Enology and Viticulture. And she's just tremendous. So we're very, very fortunate. So the next question, the alcohol level of our cabs, is it because of the climate change or to pull out the flavors? Great question. Daryl, you may have thoughts. My first thought is that we are always looking to, for us, it's a stylistic choice, so that we are never overpowering the fruit, that we're elevating the fruit, and that we strike that balance of acidity, fruit, tannin, etc. Do you have anything to add to that one?
No,
Daryl?
I think that's well said. I think the alcohol level of our Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you're referencing the Hilltop in particular, it's a little higher, right? You're closer to 15%. And I think if you're comparing that to what you see from the French, it's substantially higher. I think on average by maybe like 1.5%, maybe even 2%. I think we're able to ripen our fruit really, really well. So our Brix levels, which is the ratio of sugar in our berries, comes along with being able to ripen really well. And so I think they're aiming for a flavor profile first. And if the Brix are at a certain point, then that's where they're at. And now I'm no proxy for a winemaker, so that is my disclaimer, but that's kind of what I see them thinking about. Whether that's exactly what they're thinking about, I couldn't say definitively.
Yes, absolutely. I think that choice behind the resultant alcohol level really is all about what's going to allow us the perfect blend, and what's going to carry forward the flavors for which we're known. So it's more consistency and expression from vintage to vintage versus trying to map to a particular level of alcohol. So great question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Anyone else before I offer thanks? Your questions are phenomenal. You all have been terrific. I just want to say on behalf of the extended J. Lohr family, Daryl, Katrina, our area manager, out your way, our back end rallier, Josh Baldovino, who's our marketing manager. We just want to say thank you for allowing us into your homes. Thank you for supporting Stella Maris. Thank you for supporting Cranbrook Liquors. Thank you to Frank and Vanessa Boston for really leading the charge here. I want to encourage you, because this is a fundraiser, and because truly we are all about community. As you all know, during these tough times, it's community that keeps everything going. I know that there are some fantastic auction items that are available to you, as well as terrific wines to purchase from Cranbrook Liquors. And just a particular shout out, we love folks that believe in who we are as family wine grape growers and winemakers. And you are truly fortunate with Cranbrook to have just a really extensive portfolio there. So as I understand it, the wines are available to order until midnight on the 27th. And once they're ordered, they will be available for pickup at Cranbrook between the 1st and the 8th. And you can find the roster of wines for ordering at StellaMarisWineTasting.com. It looks like this. It's very easy to pull up. And you've had a number of the wines tonight here. We'll just recap that you've had the Hilltop, you've had the Riverstone Chardonnay, you've had the Arroyo Vista, you've had the Pure Paso, you've had the Val d'Iguier, and you've had the Bay Mist White Riesling. We have a number of other wines that are equally delicious, both from Arroyo Seco, also from Paso Robles, and we invite you to just have fun and experiment with all of these delicious wines. And again, as we close out here, we all just wish you well. Please stay safe. Please be kind to one another. And again, thank you, Kristen Marquis, Frank and Vanessa Bottom, Cranbrook Liquors, the J-Lohr team, and particularly sponsors, committee members, all of you who made this happen. Be well and safe travels. And thank you once again for joining us. It's been a sincere pleasure. Have a great rest of the weekend. Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care.